Welcome to the Secular Scriptures. I'm Gail. I just attended a talk called Church Hurt and the Healing Power of Community by Emily Lavelle, a former licensed clinical professional counselor turned musician. Her church hurt experience was very different from mine, mainly that she has stayed and I have not, but some parts were very relatable. I'm not going to share any of her personal experiences as those are hers to tell. If you get the chance to attend one of her presentations, I do give this one like a secular, lukewarm thumbs up. It's a heck of a lot better than nothing. And I'm glad that people are talking about this in churches. I'll share my takeaways, what I agreed with, what I disagreed with, and where I thought there was room for improvement. The talk was not what I'd hoped for, nor what I think a lot of the congregation was hoping for. But a person can only speak from their own experiences, and she obviously did a fantastic job with that. She helped put some of the most common types. Hi, Possum. What you doing? You're going to help me record my video. You want to lay here? You can lay there if you want. You want to lay here? It's comfy. That'll do. She helped put the most common types of lower level religious trauma in the spotlight, which is very important. As a disclaimer, while I did take notes, I did not record this, so if I misquote her or misunderstood any of her points, that is entirely my fault, and I apologize. As in most of my videos, we have to begin with some definitions. Church hurt is the emotional, spiritual, or psychological pain caused by negative experiences within a church community, often from interactions with leaders or members. This can include intentional or unintentional actions like spiritual or emotional abuse, manipulation, judgment, exclusion, and conflict, leading to deep-seated emotional wounds, disillusionment, and a damaged sense of trust. This is one level down, kind of, maybe, from religious trauma. Religious trauma is psychological and emotional distress caused by negative or harmful religious experiences, which can include abusive practices, fear-based teachings, or spiritual abuse. It occurs when religious beliefs, practices, or communities cause harm, leading to symptoms similar to other trauma responses such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, especially after leaving a high-control group. This type of trauma involves challenges to a person's core sense of self, morality, and worldview. Hi, this me. I put myself in therapy. There are different levels of church hurt, aka harm: unknowing, judgment, control, and abuse. These can be social, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial, or sexual. The level of harm Emily addressed was unknowing, judgment, and control on social, emotional, and spiritual levels. She was not there to talk about abuse or crimes, and this is very important. There's a huge difference between accidentally offending somebody because you're a dumbass and committing felonies on children. These are not the same thing, okay? Emily had okay answers to some things and dodged other questions, likely because she is not a lawyer. Of course, neither am I, and I am going to talk about these things. And it's important to note here that I am not a mental health professional either. I have a minor in psychology from 25 years ago, so that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. With that and the possum cat out of the way, here's what was good. And please note that I'm paraphrasing many of her points. So her first one was speak up. If a person doesn't know that they hurt you, they can't correct their behavior. Unknowing harm is the most common type. Unfortunately, sometimes people are idiots, myself included, and we say dumb stuff and we hurt people's feelings, and unless you address it, that other person may not know and keep repeating the harm. Communicate and have a dialogue. This presumes a good faith relationship with someone who should care about your well-being, and you should care about theirs. The idea is to figure out if this is a firm boundary for the people involved, or if this is a thing that needs to be negotiated. Many may require mediation. This could potentially emotionally suck, but it can also lead to both of you coming out better on the other side, which is the ideal situation, right? You want to talk out your problems. Form a community. Don't just be people who show up in the same building once a week for some feel-good entertainment and then leave. Visit, talk, get to know each other, strengthen your relationships, build friendships. This allows people to catch and correct harmful behaviors, because when you're friends, when someone is harmed, then it is your business. You do care and you do want to fix it. If these are just people in the same room occasionally, you may stay out of it, which allows the abuse to continue. Be real about life. Church communities and members often want things to be perfect or have the appearance of being perfect, when in reality things can be rotten to the core. I'm just going to give you a trigger warning here. There was a family I was friends with in high school, and they were pillars of their church community, the ideal family. Behind closed doors, the father was a monster and the mother allowed the abuses. When the eldest child ran away, the mother sent cops after her to haul her back into her own personal hell. CPS took the word of the church members over the children, and this did not end until the man died. A child should not have to prefer living in the streets to being in their own home, but then have a church sing the praises of your nightmare. To offer a not-so-horrific example, many people who hold places of honor in a congregation will hide alcohol addictions, pornography addictions, gambling addictions, to maintain those positions instead of getting help for something they really do need help with. If someone has hurt you, recognize that you have also hurt someone, and learning how to face both is healthy. Both being her key word here. This is very important. This is a level of emotional maturity that goes beyond say you're sorry into the hard work of actually dealing with how your own words and actions impact others. This is something that therapy really helped me with. Denying sin optimizes environments of harm. I want to say that again. Denying sin optimizes environments of harm, meaning covering your own ass lets the abusers get away with doing more abuse. This may be my favorite quote from this entire talk. Looking at you, Assemblies of God. Okay, so that's it for the stuff that I strongly agreed on. It was well worth attending just for that. Now, obviously, I did not agree with her on everything. And so here are the things that she said that I strongly disagreed with. So Emily kind of skirted around the question of dealing with abusers in church. This class of harm could be sexual, emotional, or financial abuse, abuse of authority, some of it tipping into crimes, and others may not be either of those, but they're bad enough that they'll destroy a community, like, toxic personalities and that type of thing. She equated serial abusers to a person addicted to prescription medications and going from like doctor to doctor. In other words, somebody goes from church to church. As they cause one problem here, they move over to this community and cause the same problems there until they get what they want, right? But that doesn't help a church to deal with the fallout from an abusive leader, nor does it prevent it from happening to somebody else. But she's also not a lawyer. And I think that this was way beyond the scope of her talk, so I understand why she skirted around the question. She said the poison words, what happens at church stays at church. The abuser's wet dream of secrecy. And I know that this is not what she meant. What she meant is that churches should be a safe space for emotional vulnerability and asking for help from your trusted community members without worrying about becoming wider community gossip. But there is a problem with this idea in that abusers will take advantage of it very, very, very quickly, because people who follow the rules will follow this, and people who like to take advantage of the rules will take advantage of this, and then take advantage of the people who like to follow the rules. So, while I get this sentiment, any social organization with this sort of confidentiality clause, written or just implied, is going to get a hard, oh hell's no from me. I get the impression that Emily and her husband are from a very conservative Christian circle. She used the word submit and the word husband in very close proximity to one another. And I was not the only one in the room who cringed through that. I relayed this to my husband when I got home, and he rolled his eyes and sighed, which is the appropriate and healthy response of a good life partner. And again, part of my own religious trauma is sexism, purity culture, and the umbrella of protection, which kept a woman in an abusive relationship past the point where her husband broke her arm. Week after week, I'd watch this woman become more battered, being told to submit harder and he might just stop beating her, which he didn't. And I never wanted that for myself, and yet that was clearly what this church was asking of me. I later put up with abusive partners far longer than I should have because of this toxic mindset. Abusive men and women, but especially men, will use religion as a cudgel to beat their loved ones with and then as a shield for themselves in the church community. This is a doctrine issue, and I won't discount the good things she said just because I vehemently disagree here. I still hate it, in case that wasn't clear, but we'll move on. Emily's proposed solution for the problem, and remember, we're talking here about the lower levels on the chart. We're not talking about crimes. Well, not literally the worst, was basically AA's 12-step program, just replacing the word alcohol with the word sin, which she was using instead of the more accurate word of harm. It's better than doing nothing. There are many far better conflict resolution strategies and harm prevention systems out there. Schools have a multi-layered harm prevention and support systems that churches could model their own after. Are they perfect? No. Are they way better than AA's 12-step program? Yeah. Many private social clubs have clear behavior guidelines and codes of conduct with systems of checks and balances and consequences for violations, including expulsion, when to contact authorities, and warning systems for sister groups. I'm in the SCA, and our code of conduct is far more stringent than any church I've ever been to, and in my opinion, it's not nearly strict enough to protect half the members. I mean, it's good, but it's not that good, 12 steps may get you through Martha, Mary, and Madeline jockeying for who gets control of the kitchen for the annual Easter dinner. It's not going to fix it when the youth minister is committing felonies on minors, or old Mrs. Jones is being called to give her entire Social Security check and starving all month long while Pastor Jackson buys a new classic car for his collection every single year. There has to be a way for churches to make sure that their congregation isn't taking 5 points of spiritual damage every time they walk in the doors. And while the decline in church attendance seems to have slowed a tiny bit since the pandemic, these parking lots are still really empty. I mean, like really empty. That tells me that churches aren't meeting people's needs. And to be honest, most of my friends who left, myself included, left because our churches did far more damage to us than good. Overall, for the scope of what her talk covered, I thought that this was a good start. It's a start. Like, at least it's a start, On a related note, I had some fantastic conversations with several church members, and while I don't know if I will ever go back, we at least heard and saw each other, and that actually means a lot. Thank you so much for joining me on the Secular Scriptures. Please like, comment, subscribe, and do the little bell thingy, the drill. We'll visit our old friend Isaac from Genesis and meet the love of his life, Rebecca, next week. It may be a long read and a short talk. I'm not all that into rom-coms, so we'll see what I get through.